I suppose it's important for us first to just restate the obvious, that the President's most fundamental duty is to protect our country. And this recent attempted attack that could have resulted in an act of war if they had been successful, I think it reveals two very glaring examples of President Obama's abject failure to adequately fulfill his responsibility to protect our southern borders and the failure to respond to a terrorist regime on the verge of obtaining nuclear weapons. The main terrorist attempting to organize these attacks on our soil sought to hire members of the Mexican drug cartel known as Zetas. I'm sure you folks have discussed that already, but partly because of their seemingly unfettered access to weaponry. And it's an astonishing irony to me, Mr. Carter, that it was the Obama Department of Justice that was involved in allowing just such weaponry to be walked across the border into the waiting arms of Mexican drug cartels like the Zetas. And yesterday's foil plot underscores the serious nature of the allegations surrounding Operation Fast and Furious. And, of course, I think it's very appropriate that Attorney General Holder has now been rightly subpoenaed. And the number one reason why this momentous event establishes more than, beyond any shadow of a doubt, is that Iran is committed enough to attack or to try to foment an attack upon the United States. And you know, there's really only two fundamental components to any threat to our national security. One is intent, and the second is capacity. If this doesn't clarify once again in the starkest terms Iran's intent, I don't know what it will take to wake this administration up. But the frightening part about it is that this same regime has gone on unabated for years now, inexorably and inevitably pursuing nuclear weapons capability, and this administration has been asleep at the wheel. And I can't express to you how dangerous I believe that is. Last year, General David Petraeus announced that Iran was directly assisting al-Qaeda, and shortly thereafter, General Raymond Odierno, now Chief of Staff of the Army, said Iran was funding and training insurgent troop groups in Iraq. And furthermore, a report last September indicated that Iran was also funding Taliban efforts to kill American troops in Afghanistan. This is a pattern here. And if they are committed enough to try to foment an attack here and literally try to blow up the Israeli embassy here, or to kill the Saudi Arabian ambassador to the U.S., let me suggest to you that the intent is so clear that our entire focus now should be upon dealing with the capacity. And this administration should have the courage now to take this moment to stand up and say to the whole world that America will not let Iran gain nuclear weapons with which to threaten the entire human family, even if it means a military response on the part of the United States. They need to make that very clear, and this is the moment to do that. Because I would suggest to you that there's an effort by Iran to create a hegemony in the Middle East that's causing a lot of the Middle Eastern countries now to flock to Iran's side out of absolute sniveling terror that Iran will gain the nuclear weapons capability. And I would just say to you, if Iran does do this, not only will it change the history of humanity, not only will we all be stepping into the shadow of nuclear terrorism, but history will record that this president was the one that stood by and allowed that to happen. And I would suggest to you that that is a complete abrogation of presidential duty. Perhaps this president would do better if he were able to focus on the threats of our nation without being so busy apologizing for America at every opportunity. It's been reported at the State Department under Secretary of State Hillary Clinton that they called to express condolences to the family of al-Qaeda propagandist Samir Khan, who was killed in the same attack that took out Anwar al-Awlaki. Now, it's a difficult thing to say or ask, but I just wonder if the Obama State Department called all of the families of the victims of the terrorism that these two men fomented in the world, especially those perhaps who died at Fort Hood. And so I'm astonished that this president is so busy apologizing to the families of terrorists that I wonder if he has time to defend this country. We have an administration that not only refuses to enforce our immigration laws, but then allows weapons to pass to the very criminals from whom they are given charge to protect Americans from, and then they sue the states who step in, like Arizona, and try to enforce immigration laws themselves. And meanwhile, Mr. Carter, I would just suggest to you that it is just astonishing that we have to sit here and have this conversation while the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism, Iran, is drawing closer and closer to building a functional nuclear weapons capability that they could pass on to their terrorist proxies, some of which are believed to be operating near the same unsecured southern border. Just the fact that Iran was willing to try to bring in the Mexican drug lords, the Zeta gangs, is proof that they're willing to try to pass some of their deeds off to proxies. Now, if that becomes a nuclear weapons capability, then the world's in trouble. And there's just no way I can conjure words strong enough to describe the insanity of this administration's lackadaisical, irresponsible approach to national defense. I wish I could.
Reclaiming my time for a moment.